Welcome to The Informed Investor. It is a podcast that we started last year, and we got the involvement of a lot of property managers around Australia, which we will probably continue to do, but we also just wanted to use it as a platform to showcase some behind-the-scenes discussions that investors might find interesting. So joining me, I have Marisa, who's going to be hosting quite a lot of these conversations in the future. So welcome, Marisa.
Thanks for having me, Ash.
So, well, I'm not really having you. It's a
bit of both.
I'm having, yeah, that's right. It's a bit of both. But I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes that happen in real estate agencies and property management departments. And it's just really good to sort of share those conversations and the behind the scenes as well of what happens in our world. And hopefully it just prompts some new ideas and thoughts and questions for investors to ask their property managers wherever they are based. So today's topic is how to pick a good property manager and why proactive maintenance matters. So I'm going to start off with asking you, Marisa, how much does the wrong property manager actually cost you, and what does that look like in real life?
Great question. There's quite a few different ways that you can look at this. So maintenance will kind of come to in a second, but the wrong property manager, if you're going with someone that doesn't have the right systems behind them, they're not supported in their company, that's when little things get missed and those 100% add up over time. So that can look like missed rent increases. It can look like incorrect leases. You know, I've seen people in the past sign lease agreements for the wrong term, and then the tenants have been signed on to an agreement when the owner needed to move in. So there's a few different ways that it can come through in terms of the lease agreements. But then when you look at the maintenance side of things, if you've got a property manager and they're going through their routine inspections in a rush, they're not picking up on things like overflowing gutters or, cracks that have appeared. Things like that can really build and add up to bigger maintenance problems. So if we're not checking those gutters at those routine inspections and then we have a heavy rainfall without getting the gutters cleaned, that's when it can turn into a roof leak. And quite often when we are lodging insurance claims for owners, they'll actually ask for our routine inspection reports. And I have had it in the past where there's been things that weren't picked up on in a routine, but you can see it in the photos, and that can actually affect the owner's insurance claims.
Yeah. If we can touch on the routine inspections a bit more, because this morning there was a post on TikTok, and it was a angry landlord based over in Victoria, and his property manager had done a routine inspection last year, and no one noticed that there was a carport that was missing. The carport had just been removed by the tenant, and it was really interesting because if you have a department where someone else does all the routine inspections, they're going to pick up if things are damaged. They're going to pick up, maintenance items and all of that. But imagine you've got a property with a clean cut carport removed. You wouldn't actually know any better, because I don't think landlords actually realise that when you do a routine inspection, you're not comparing a property condition report or that ingoing report at the routine inspection. You're going there to look at different things. And I just think it's a really interesting point, and probably a little bit of responsibility, dare I say, needs to go back to the landlord as well to read those routine inspections and to potentially pick up on something like that, because I can actually see how that could have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, but it does also come back to the property manager as well. I know it's not realistic to expect that every routine inspection is going to be compared to the previous one. Let's be real, no property manager actually has time to do that for every single report. But when I was a property manager, I would include, I had the option on the app that I was using to include the previous inspection photos just to refer to on the app while I was at the property. So I could go through and kind of flick through the photos, see what it looked like previously. First of all, it made my job a lot easier because it meant that I wasn't having to document things that had already been fixed or addressed. It meant I could check that things that were previously noticed had been fixed up between the last report and now. But if you're a property manager and you're going through a property for the first time, you aren't going to know what the condition was to start with. So it kind of does fall back to the PM to make sure that when you're in a new portfolio or you're going out to a new property, to be honest, even if you're helping out someone in your office, you really should be checking through the last report just to make sure there's anything that you need to keep an eye on. And maybe that property manager would have noticed that the entire carport was missing.
Yeah. There's just so many. I'm trying not to go down a rabbit hole because there are so many discussions to have, which we'll have in future episodes. But, it comes down to like you said, the inspection software that you use in terms of does it have the ability to look at previous photos. It comes down to how the office is set up. Do they have an independent person that does inspections? Do they outsource? Does a property manager do them? Like so many factors. And all of these factors, new business, new landlords don't ask that when they're appointing a property manager.
Because they don't know.
So I'm really, really looking forward to sort of, the future episodes where we're going to actually talk about those things so that investors can have better questions to ask new property managers when they're looking at and shopping around for a property manager, know those better questions. What inspection program do they use? Who does the routines? I can't tell you the last new landlord who asked me those questions. Never.
Yeah. Neither.
But again, they just don't know what they don't know. So that's really exciting to discuss.
Podcast.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about even like the software. Marissa's a great expert when it comes to software and options for landlords to understand and know of. Actually, there was one the other day that we don't have the client yet, but she emailed me and she had asked about some maintenance. She's had a really bad tenant since November, has no money coming through. Her current property manager is trying to release the property, but there's lots of expenses that need to be spent, the aircon and all of that. She's got no money to do it. And I emailed her back because she's like, what do I do? So I emailed her back and said, maybe ask if the property manager has TAPI, which is a maintenance program, because then you might have some financial access to borrow funds while the property's vacant. And she was like, oh, amazing. I'll go back and ask them. And I just explained to her how to ask whether they've got the program or not. And she was doing that. So that type of thing is really helpful for landlords to know. So when we say how to pick a good property manager, it's not just about the property manager. It's about the stuff behind the scenes.
Absolutely. The systems, the support in the agency, even things like the culture can make a big impact on the service that you actually get from your PM. So it all ties in. So beyond collecting rent, what does a property manager actually do day to day? And why do so many investors not realise the full scope of the role until something goes wrong?
Very timely, isn't it, that question? Because what does a property manager actually even do? At the moment, they're dealing with behavioural issues.
Absolutely.
I would say that's like the biggest problem, and that is unseen. Like I don't think like landlords, they see that the rent's paid, maintenance reported, inspections done, like tick, tick, tick. But the stuff in between, they don't see. So just trying to think of like some good examples where, at the moment we've got one, which was the house where the naughty tenant had the police over, and the neighbours, I think, pretty much were on the phone all day to the property manager. Yeah. And complaining. And then I started getting the overflow because they weren't happy with, wanting to put a complaint in, and they were acting like I was the one that did the criminal activity, like the way that they were carrying on.
Or that you had the ability to just go and kick them out then and there.
That's right.
People don't understand that there's processes, there's legislation that we have to follow.
Yeah.
People's expectations in the last few years have just become astronomical, and they expect outcomes immediately.
Yeah.
No one has the patience anymore, and they don't understand the processes and the things that we are bound by on our end.
Yeah.
So I definitely felt for the property manager with that one.
Yeah. And it's a lot of, I find it's a lot of neighbour issues. Actually, it's probably a really big neighbour issues. I'm going to say neighbour issues taking up a lot of time that's unaccounted for and we don't get paid for. And break leases. And tenants, personal, I'm separating, I'm leaving the house, fights between husband, wives.
Fights between co-tenants.
Yes.
Share house.
Yes. We got a bad review once, didn't we? Because we had said to the tenant, you got to work it out. It's your housemate, nothing to do with the lease. And we got a bad review because we weren't helping. It's like, that's not our business to help you.
As though we were meant to intervene and manage the conflict between them.
Yeah, correct. And I know that, I remember I had to mediate between husband and wife with the bond and trying to say, listen, I've been there before. Just hand it over. It's really not worth it. It's 2 weeks rent. Give your half bond back. Just close it, move on. And it's like those things that they're not seeing, because you don't call up the investor and say, I've just had to deal with your relationship issues in your house. We don't tell you about that, because we just have to deal with it. So I feel like at the moment, that's taking up a lot of time, which is unaccountable for. It begs the question, are we managing tenancies or are we managing properties? Because
We're managing relationships.
yeah, which is pretty shitty at the moment.
Very time consuming.
I'm pretty sure that in the past, where it's just like 2 emails, now it is about 4 or 5 emails going back and forth to try and close off things.
All written by ChatGPT.
Oh, yes.
Every single one of them.
Yeah. So I try to, educate the team that the longer the email that you get sent, the shorter you respond. Don't go too many words otherwise, and we go into a big tit for tat, really. So that's how I try to deal with that. But we shared in our we've got an office private sort of staff group, a team messenger group, and we had in there the other day, I shared a video by one of the trainers, a real estate trainer over East, Julie, and she did a really good video on closing the loop. And I think that's something that really resonated with me. And this is something that can help landlords as well as property managers, and maybe help landlords understand what the property manager is trying to do, and that's closing the loop. So what we find is that we've got lots of open-ended situations that are all up in the air because we're waiting on a response from you as the landlord or the tenant. And so closing the loop is referring to the fact that if you haven't got back to me in a certain time frame, I'm going to respond with a really good email to say, as I haven't heard from you, your tenant will roll over on a periodic tenancy, for example, and closing it in a way so that I'm not leaving it open-ended. That was something I just really liked, that video that she did.
Yeah, same. And I think it really resonated with the team as well. So much of this job is back and forth. Coming back to the email trains, my biggest thing is pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Like, I understand needing to have things in writing, especially in this day and age. But if I'm helping a property manager going through conflict resolution, they've got these back and forth emails. Just pick up the phone. When you can actually hear people's tone in their voice as well, it makes a big difference. And it also stops them from all of those AI-generated emails. Like, it's giving you that chance to, first of all, work on the connection between them and come to a quicker resolution. And then once you've finished up, it's easy to quickly send through confirmation email as per our phone call. But it just saves so much time and so much back and forth as well. So I do have to kind of remind people of that and how much it does make a big difference.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've had owners in the past when I've been helping step in for conflict that have said to me, oh, I actually really appreciate that you just took the time and called me straight away.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the biggest issues with, people that are frustrated with their property managers. It's just because they can't get hold of them. That's really all it is. So I've been covering a portfolio, just a small one, while we're in between property managers, and I am very time poor with it, and I have had to pick up the phone. So yesterday I needed to close those loops quickly because I don't have time to keep open loops like with this portfolio. So I been calling the owners, getting the answer and dealing with it straight away, and I have found that incredibly helpful. And what I find, and speaking to the rest of the team, is that regardless if you've got 50 properties or 300 properties under management, you will absorb the time that you have your full-time work week in whatever you've got. Like, if you've got 50 properties, you'll still take 40 hours a week to manage it. If you've got 300 properties, you'll still take 40 hours. And the difference is, like, those closing the loops, picking up the phone. And this is what I said to Chelsea yesterday. Chelsea's like, I don't have time to go back and forth. She's on the phone.
Yeah.
Make a decision now so I can move on with it. Where someone who has lots of time can just send the email, let me know tomorrow. And so this is why I get really frustrated at that question that owners ask when they come up, how many properties does your property manager manage? And I say, you don't even know what the right answer is. Like, you're asking me, but you don't know what the right answer is, because I would say that the person with the larger portfolio is probably better with their time than the person with 50.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they've got no choice but to be good with their time. It's like, we say, give a busy person something to do and she'll get it done. It's a classic example. Maybe when you ask that question next, put some value on a high portfolio, because that would tell me they're pretty productive. There you go, a little tip for everyone. Okay, when an investor is interviewing a property manager, here we go. We'll go into this now. Yeah. When an investor is interviewing a property manager, what are the non-negotiable questions they should be asking before they hand over their asset? I'm going to first of all say what they're asking me at the moment, and then you can answer what they should be asking.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, they're asking how many properties a property manager manages. Then you get a little business lesson from me when you ask that question. Then they're asking your fees. And to be honest, I'm going to say that they're the two main questions that are asked. They might ask who manages a property. Very rarely. They don't want to really know the history of that person, experience that person, or nothing. So they're the two things that people are asking. What do you think they should be asking?
So instead of just asking how many property managers have you got in the team, or how many properties is each property manager managing, ask about the actual structure before you ask about the numbers. Because sure, you could have someone that's on 200 properties, and to them that might sound possibly alarming, but if you find out the actual structure in the business, they likely have admin support, they might have inspection or leasing support. It's typical that they'll actually have a full-time BDM in the office. So while 200 properties might sound like a lot, if they have the right structure and support set up in that office, like you said, they're probably giving you better service than the property manager that's only on 50 to 70. So I think that's really important to find out the sort of structure, because that can also then affect, moving forward. If you start getting calls from someone else in the leasing department and you had no idea that that was the structure from the start, that's something you might want to know. You might be the sort of owner that only wants to deal with your property manager throughout the leasing process. And if you don't ask those questions at the start, it can kind of take you by surprise. So having those expectations going into it makes a big difference. It's really important to ask what software they're using. So this is a big one. I love software. I love tech. I love talking about all of this. And there's so many options out there, but it can really make a big difference as to the service that you receive. So if you sign up with an agency that is maybe a trustless platform, to some investors, that's a bonus. That's actually what they're after. They want those instant payments. But to others, that might not work for their financial goals. So it's really important to find out what system are they using. Are they doing instant payments? Is it mid-month and end month? Are you only going to get your payments at the end of the month? All of these things do make a big difference into their cash flow for the property. So I'd say that that's my other biggest question to focus on. And then also, this is a slightly different one, but does the agency support personal development with those property managers? Mm-hmm. This has been a hot topic that we've all been talking about lately. And you want to know that your property manager is actually committed to continually providing you good service. And if they're in an agency where they get their mandatory CPD points and nothing else, how do you know that that property manager is doing everything that they can to learn about the changes in legislation more than what's just required, but actually really understanding it? Are they learning different ways that they can add value to your service? Are they really understanding the tenancy and how to manage conflict with those tenancies? If they clock in, and this could not be the property manager's fault, this could be that they're in an agency that doesn't support them. But if they're just in a 9-to-5 job with no external support, no networking or community involvement, that's not really a property manager that you can see having long term, because they're very quickly going to end up hitting the point of burnout. And that's when you start to get agencies that are just churning and burning those property managers.
So what you're saying is they should really ask if they are PM Collective members.
Oh, shameless plug.
Well, then they know that they're, educated in that. I think that's a really good point, actually, because not the PM Collective, what you're saying. Because if you think about it, the people that don't get the opportunity to network in their industry, love their career, love where they're working, and don't get that opportunity, they are going to be driven by money, and they're also going to move when the next best thing's offered to them. So the longevity of that team is probably not going to be as strong as an agency that has that good culture and that good support for the industry. So that could be a really good question to ask and to suggest that, you've got people that love what they do. They're less likely to get burnt out. They're less likely to have sick days every second day. So that would be a really good factor. I've only ever once in my whole career ever been asked this question, and I loved it so much when someone asked me. It was probably about 15 years ago, and someone said to me, "What are you doing to look after your team's mental health?"
Oh, I love that.
I was like, "What a great question!" He threw me because I was like, "Whoa." I didn't know how to answer, even though I was doing good stuff, but I didn't know how to answer that. It was just a really good discussion point. And what a great question to ask.
What a great owner.
Yeah. Can't remember who the owner was, but it was really awesome. We are going to do more sessions on software because I guess the other thing I would say is that investors can ask what software is going to be used and there's going to be benefits for it all. But if they don't know what having that software means, then they're not going to know how it's actually going to affect them as well. So we will do more episodes in regards to the nitty-gritty of software and what the benefits are of each, and what the property manager will sell you as a feature, so that you know as well, because I think that'll be a pretty interesting conversation to have.
I'm excited.
I know, I'm sure you are.
I know, yeah. All right, I am going to ask you now, what are the red flags that tell you immediately this is not the right property manager, even if they say all the right things on the surface?
So from an investor's point of view, the red flags, probably in the very, very early days, a red flag to me would be if you are going through, you've said yes to a property manager and the marketing starts and they say to you, we can't get the property online straight away because our photographer can't do photos till next week. And that's actually a true story that came up. And I was like, what do you mean? Just get another photographer. And this property manager only used this one photographer, and this poor owner had the property vacant for a week waiting for that photographer. And it was like, where was the sense of urgency? And that owner's losing $600 a week, say, because you want to use your own photographer. Look outside the square. So for me, that would be a real big red flag. If someone said that to me,
it's a big worry.
It's a big worry. And again, they're questions that people don't ask when they start, like how quickly can my property be online? What's the time between me signing and the property listed and going live? Those types of questions never get asked. So that would be probably a real red flag. Another red flag would be to be honest, I feel like your gut is a real big one. Property managers use their gut when they have application processing, and I think that your gut's going to tell you if something's not right. I would say probably as things go on in terms of the longer you have the property being managed, red flags that you can start seeing is probably property managers, not just starting to get a little bit tardy with their communication. Taking more than 2 days to get back to you is probably where I'd be like, oh, that's pushing it a bit, 2 or 3 days. If you find that they go on holiday and they don't get any support, is probably a bit of a red flag, because that's going to then cause a build-up of work and everything just starts spiralling. They're probably the main red flags. I guess it's just the communication is the first thing to fail. There's lots of little things that property managers do that I don't love, that you might see pop up, and that would be something as simple as you have some maintenance come through from a tenant and the property manager just forwards you the whole email and you've got all the tenant's details, and I know you can get it from the lease agreement, but still it's a bit lazy just to forward on an email from a tenant to an owner to say, see email below, what would you like me to do? Hate that. I think that would probably be the reason why that's a bit of a red flag is because I feel like that's a little bit of an overshare. So if they're doing it to you, are they doing that back to the tenant? Are they forwarding your email onto the tenant?
Most likely. Yeah.
Most likely, that's right. So I think that would worry me a little bit. I think sometimes property managers, and it can be an age thing, just the etiquette of emails and what someone sees as normal and not normal is don't assume that they they know what the etiquette is. Because when that actually was a true case study that came up on one of the Facebook groups recently, like what was actually might have been even at one of the investor groups, and it was talking about how an email was forwarded on from a tenant to an owner, and it was very mixed from the responses because people were like, well, the tenant details are in the lease agreement, so are they really violating anyone's privacy because the owners have got access to that? So technically, state dependent actually, but but the this one was like that's true, but that's not the part that I'm concerned about. The part that I'm concerned about is the laziness of it.
Yeah. I have another red flag to add.
Yeah.
And mine is if there's no staff profiles on the website.
Yes.
I find if I am looking at another agency, if I can't find anything on their website, meet the team, about us, anything like that, to me that immediately indicates that they've got a really high staff turnover to the point that they just don't bother updating their website anymore.
Yeah.
I think so much of this job is relationship management, and it's kind of nice to have a look and see who you are going to be speaking to moving forward and read a little bit about them. So if you go on someone's website and there's no mention about their staff, that's a pretty big indicator that it's a high turnover in that agency.
Yeah. Very good one. Proactive versus reactive maintenance. What is the real cost difference, and why do many landlords still operate in a reactive mode? I'm going to reframe that a little bit, maybe to why property managers still operate in a reactive mode. Do you want to talk about the proactive maintenance that we plan for our clients each year, what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, because it's top of mind, we've just recently done this, is annual gutter cleaning.
Yeah.
So every year, typically about March, we send out an email to all of our owners. We typically try to find one contractor that can service the whole portfolio across Perth, and we'll get that fixed price for them. Send out the bulk communications and just say, if you'd like this done, let us know. We give them the reasons why, so preventing any sort of build-up that can then cause roof leaks later. And then also the fact that we're sending this out to them now to get ahead of not only the rain. So for gutter cleaning contractors, the second the rain does start, they get booked out for all of the winter. So by starting this process earlier, it makes sure that we can actually be proactive and get ahead of that, get everything done. And then once the rains do start, we know that we're safe.
It can prevent the leaking into the eaves as well. Yeah,
exactly. So it's making the property manager's life easier because they're not having to deal with a roof leak, deal with an insurance claim. It's making the tenant's life easier because they're not inconvenienced by having a roof leak. And it also makes the owner's life easier because taking that proactive approach obviously is going to save them a lot of money in the long run in terms of not causing any damage to the property. So that's our first one that's top of mind. In winter, we send out summer aircon servicing emails. So again, making sure that we're doing this before the warmer months. We get a fixed price, send it out to all of our owners, and we recommend that that's done on an annual basis. The point of that is to make sure that we know that the system is running properly. It's getting those cleans that it needs. It's getting that annual service to make sure everything's actually working. And then when the warmer months do start, we're identifying any issues before it gets to that point. So again, for the tenants, unfortunately in WA, aircon isn't a requirement and it's not considered urgent maintenance. And if you have an aircon that breaks pretty much from September onwards, you're looking at a minimum 4-week wait time to get it fixed.
Yeah.
And that's not including if there needs to be any special parts ordered in. So there's a lot that kind of happens behind the scenes. So when we take that proactive approach of sending out the annual servicing in the winter months, first of all, we normally get a better price because obviously the aircon contractors, it's their quieter periods. They'll typically offer a better price. But yeah, we're identifying any issues earlier and we're just making sure that we're staying ahead of it. So that definitely helps strengthen the relationship with the tenants as well, not just for the PM, but for the owner. The feedback we get from those tenants is, oh, wow, we really appreciate this. And it gives them that sense of security that, first of all, the owner does care and prioritizes actually maintaining the property. But it means that they don't have to worry coming into summer that they're going to get a surprised issue or, have to deal with any sort of broken air cons on our lovely 40-degree days that we have here.
Yeah, and then wanting it fixed the next day. Because the thing, my understanding with aircon is that the evaporative systems, generally the aircon person will have parts mostly, but any other system it's not possible for an aircon contractor to store parts because there's hundreds and different types of parts for every type of unit. So therefore, you have to wait parts, and that's a 6 to 8 week wait sometimes. So
yeah, exactly. A few other things that we kind of work on. It's not so much maintenance, but we do send out those reminders to tenants for reticulations and making sure they're turning it off before the sprinkler ban that we have, and then turning it on again when the sprinkler ban's lifted. And at that point, we ask them to check that the system is working to make sure that there's no issues. If there is, it just means that we can get those things addressed before the weather gets too hot and all the lawns die off.
Yeah.
And then something else that we've been trying to work in recently is documenting the age of the hot water systems.
Yeah.
So making sure that those are being checked at the routine inspections. You can pretty easily identify for hot water systems, on its way out, that you can tell they don't look too great after.
Yeah.
Once they've hit their limit. So if we identify that at the routine inspection and just flag it with the owner, hey, I checked the hot water system. It looks like it's about 10 years old. We've seen some that are closer to 20 and it's shocking that they're still going. It just means that we're keeping an eye on it and we can tell the owner, hey, I'd probably expect in the next year or so that we'll need to have this replaced. So maybe just start planning for that financially.
Yeah. And I guess to finish off is if you are an investor and your property manager doesn't do proactive maintenance, there is nothing stopping you being a proactive landlord and emailing your property manager to say, hey, can you arrange my gutter cleaning? Hey, can you arrange my aircon servicing? So don't necessarily put blame on a property manager. A good property manager will do it, but do take responsibility as an investor if they're not, because at the end of the day, it's your property and you want to make sure that it's as stress-free as possible for you as well. So excellent discussion. So I hope everyone got something out of that, and we look forward to delivering more episodes. And if anyone ever has any questions that they do want us to discuss or topics, feel free to message us through. We'll be very happy to answer them.
Amazing. Thanks, Ash.